What's up, everybody? Coach Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Overwatch video. And in this video, we're going to be breaking down 5 things that if Overwatch 2 doesn't nail, it will die. These are incredibly important things that Overwatch 1 really failed at, and it caused a lot of problems and ultimately led to Overwatch 1's downfall. So we got to break it down and talk about it. But the GameLeap website is the best place to quickly dominate and climb. If you want to climb incredibly far, not only in Overwatch 1, but prepare yourself for Overwatch 2, you got to go check out the in-depth courses right now down below. Now, the first and probably most important thing that Overwatch 2 needs to nail is balance. If you don't remember, there was a time period in Overwatch 1 that is the dark times, the dark ages, the time frame where when I was playing scrims, I had to play goddamn Brig every single day, even though I was a Genji main. You heard that right. It was the GOATS meta. Yep, we were in the GOATS meta for a long ass time. And at the beginning, it was actually kind of novel. It was really cool, and I actually liked the GOATS meta in a lot of ways, and there are still some fans of the GOATS meta. But ultimately, from a spectator's point of view in the Overwatch League to a player point of view in ranked, GOATS was just a complete failure in balance. They tried to remove GOATS many times by nerfing Brig. Ultimately, nerfing her to the point where she was near dead was still not enough. They had to resort to 2-2-2. Now, if that isn't a sign of bad balance, I don't know what is. You put a character in the game that you just can't undo. No matter how hard you try, you cannot actually remove the value that she brings to the point where you have to fundamentally change the entire game in order to make compositions actually, not freaking ridiculous with no DPS. I remember how frustrating it was when I was trying to play around the high masters, low GM range, and sometimes you would just be winning a game and the enemy team would just decide that they want to be GOATs. They want to play GOATs. And now if you don't go play GOATs to counter them, you would probably lose. It didn't matter up to that point. And then both teams are playing GOATs and it was just a GOATs fest. And it was incredibly frustrating to play against. And I think coming off the back of like Tracer Widow compositions in Overwatch League, or compositions that were dive compositions that were incredibly skill-oriented, coordination-oriented, but left a lot of room for individual play as well. But here's the deal. Overwatch 2 can have bad balance decisions. They could have a character introduced that's overpowered, or they could have a composition that rises up that is completely busted. All we ask as players of the game is for those things to not remain in the game for longer than, 3-6 months, a year, right? If something is obviously extremely polarizing and broken, take a little bit harder decisions on it. Nerf it harder, get it out of the game quicker, and if it's too far, you can always buff things again later. Now moving on to the next big thing that Overwatch 2 needs to nail, they need to find the right balance between top-down balance and average rank balance. And you might be asking, what do I mean by that? Well, some games, typically esports-centric games, will balance based on the top, right? They'll take whatever is played at the pro scene and they'll try to properly balance that for a competitive game. And then the rest of the ranks kind of just get what they get, and people learn from the higher ranks and it trickles down. That is a top-down sort of balance. Now, in Overwatch, they consistently have not done that. They have not balanced for the highest rank. They have balanced for even people on the community forums. They have balanced for the average rank. And I think that that's not in the best interest of the game either. Because what happens is if you balance for the average rank, then things in the higher ranks become completely busted, unbalanced, and just not really great from a top-down point of view. And I think that the trickle down is a really great way to have players learn how to properly play the game, is by emulating what the rank above them is doing. I think that's a really good thing just for making a game more competitive. Now that being said, with Overwatch in particular, it's not so simple. And what I mean by that is, imagine a situation where they balanced Pharah to be really great in the pro scene, right? She's really strong, she's really great, but then all of a sudden, when you take out the hit scan skill of the top level Widowmakers and hit scan players, and you drop it down to even a master's level or a diamond level, all of a sudden that Pharah that was balanced at the highest rank is now completely fucking busted, and it's not even close to fair. So that's what I'm talking about. You could create a situation where other ranks are suffering at the cost of the highest rank. That doesn't happen with every game, But with Overwatch in particular, where there's certain characters that can actually completely dictate a game, I think it is important to take a really great balanced approach. And in the past, I thought you had to choose. I thought you had to pick, oh, are you gonna bounce for the average rank or the top rank? I don't think you have to choose. I think you could do it all. It's gonna be more difficult, of course, but I ultimately think the best way to balance this way is have everything scale to a certain extent with skill and put skill at the upper ends of what is good or meta in the game. Have something that is very difficult mechanically and skillfully to pull off at the upper rank. Make those characters the best, because then those automatically scale with skill, right? You don't make a really, really strong meta character something that doesn't scale that well with skill. That's my personal opinion, but I really want to hear your balanced opinions about this down below. Now, the next thing that Overwatch 2 absolutely needs to do is they need to get rid of the medal system. I've basically spent, I don't even know, 10 videos at this point on this channel preaching about how the medal system is promoting bad behavior. It's promoting not only toxicity, but players playing wrong. There are characters that won't get medals. There are characters that will get medals and they should get medals, or it's fine if they do and it's fine if they don't. Essentially, the medal system, while it can be an indicator of problems, right? Like if your Mercy has gold damage, that should, I don't even know how that would happen, but you know, whatever, Diva or whatever character has gold damage that shouldn't, you could say, hey, that probably shouldn't happen. But it's really hard to make actual deductive claims without context of the situation. Like you could say, oh, I have gold damage and maybe you're a diva, right? But your gold damage is 1,000 and your entire team has been getting spawn camped and rolled. Yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, you have gold damage. That's freaking great. But in actuality, it's probably the tank's cooperative effort, at least in Overwatch 1, to get you out of spawn and create space for your DPS to even leave the spawn. So if that's not even happening, damage doesn't matter. It doesn't tell the full story. And that's why the medal system is so wrong and so bad. It's being used as a weapon, and it's also being used to mislead players to the correct play. So I think in every single way, the medal system is wrong, and I think that it needs to get completely rehauled and changed into something different. Now, the next thing that's incredibly important that Overwatch 2 does correctly is have a constant content flow. I think that ultimately games in the current era need to be live service. A lot of these games, competitive games, need to have some sort of, you know, timeline, some sort of consistent update. And in my opinion, the best way to do this is have like patch updates that happen on a consistent basis, right? Once a month or, you know, 2 times a month, once every 2 weeks, whatever you want to do, have a consistent patch where every time this happens, there will be some amount of balance changes. It might not be much, but it'll be something. It will be the developers talking directly to the players, and maybe there will be additions, whether it's maps, characters, whatever the case may be. And this is the way that a lot of the popular games that are live service are doing it right now, and it's working well, like Valor and Apex, where they have something on a mini timeline, and you come to expect a certain amount of content coming in. So for example, you could think, okay, every 2 weeks on this day, this will drop. A certain amount of update will drop, some balance will drop, and you know if something's super broken, something was introduced that's busted, or there's a bug in the game, you know that just around the corner it's gonna be solved. And then in addition to that, you can have bigger timeline set pieces like every 3 months, there's going to be at least 1 new character and 1 new map, or every 4 months, or whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter exactly how much, it matters about the consistency. That is what matters more in my personal opinion. Now, I say that, but I don't mean add a map every year, but I do mean it's important to be consistent and reliable as far as content being introduced than it is to just dump a whole bunch and then dip. That is far worse in my personal opinion. Now, the last thing, and I think this is one of the most important things that they need to do, and it's probably going to not happen because they're probably going to do this, and it's stop over focusing on pro play. I think that Overwatch League has, you know, grown, and in the beginning it did really well. It suffered towards the latter part, especially when it was removed off Twitch. But I think that they have been putting way too many resources and too much focus on pushing through the Overwatch League. Now, I'm not going to say that the Overwatch League was flat out a failure, but I will say that it was not worth the investment and time put into it. And ultimately, the majority of players in Overwatch don't actually care that much. I think that a pro scene needs to be grown organically. It doesn't need to be forced. It doesn't need to be pushed with giant amounts of sponsors and money and just kind of spam it in front of your screen. And in my opinion, some of my most favorable times watching pro Overwatch was before Overwatch League, back when it was far more organic, in the Apex series, if any of y'all remember that, where there were very little caps on the prize pool and pro players could enter these sporadic tournaments. And when Overwatch League kind of came into the fray, they had a hard cap on how much money a tournament could offer. And I think that that was really, really a terrible idea. You basically make people support Overwatch League, but the actual result is people stop caring about pro scene more and more. So yeah, I really hope they find a happy balance here. But definitely let me know, what are the big things that you think that Overwatch 2 needs to nail, or else the game will die? What is your biggest pet peeve for Overwatch 1 that if they take it straight into Overwatch 2, you will be absolutely furious? I really want to hear your opinion about that down below. And the GameLeap website is the best place to absolutely dominate and pop off with in-depth tips, tricks, VODs, and so much more. Do yourself a favor and go check it out right now down below.